Hey everybody, how you doing today? I'm Jack and welcome to another episode of Raw Tropical Living. Beautiful sunny day here in the south, but boy was it a storm last night. We got a rain. I haven't seen a rain like that. We had a hurricane here. I was visiting in 2004, and since I've been coming back to this area I haven't seen anything like that. Knocked some lines down. Our power was out for about 3 hours. The cable and internet's been out, and I thought they were going to get it repaired. They worked across the street, but they didn't get mine down. And on the weekends, man, the customer service is not local, and so I've been on the phone all morning just trying to see what's going on. But anyhow, those little lessons in patience that we are thrown in life. Today I want to talk about fear identifying with the mind and ego. I do videos every day, so if you haven't already done it, go down there and hit that subscribe button now. Then click on the little bell and check send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. This is just another one of my little weekend episodes, and it kind of comes from more and more their little lessons or things that always resonate with my mindfulness meditation practice. And I'm going to do another reading again from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And like I say, as I'm reading through this, I've mentioned as I read books, like especially something like this, like I'll read it, I'll put it down, I'll pick it up again. I think I know I've done a couple of readings from here, weekend videos, but I'm just getting a lot of good stuff in here. And this one really resonated with some of the stuff I'm working on. All right, we're going to start with the origin of fear. You mentioned fear as being part of our basic underlying emotional pain. How does fear arise? And why is there so much of it in people's lives? And isn't a certain amount of fear just healthy self-protection? If I didn't have a fear of fire, I might put my hand in it and get burned. And he answers, the reason why you don't put your hand in the fire is not because of fear, it's because you know that you'll get burned. You don't need fear to avoid unnecessary danger, just a minimum of intelligence and common sense. For such practical matters, it is useful to apply the lessons learned in the past. Now, if someone threatened you with fire or with physical violence, you might experience something like fear. This is an instinctive shrinking back from danger, but not the psychological condition of fear that we are talking about here. The psychological condition of fear is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It comes in many forms: unease, worry, anxiety, nervousness, tension, dread, phobia, and so on. This kind of psychological fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You are in the here and now, while your mind is in the future. This creates an anxiety gap. And if you are identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and simplicity of the now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion. You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future. Moreover, as long as you are identified with your mind, the ego runs your life, as I pointed out earlier. Because of its phantom nature, and despite elaborate defense mechanisms, the ego is very vulnerable and insecure, and it sees itself as constantly under threat. This, by the way, is the case even if the ego is outwardly very confident. Now remember that an emotion is the body's reaction to your mind. What message is the body receiving continuously from the ego, the false, mind-made self? Danger, I am under threat. And what is the emotion generated by this continuous message? Fear, of course. Fear seems to have many causes: fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being hurt, and so on. But ultimately, all fear is the ego's fear of death, of annihilation. To the ego, death is always just around the corner. In this mind-identified state, fear of death affects every aspect of your life. For example, even such a seemingly trivial and normal thing as the compulsive need to be right in an argument and make the other person wrong, defending the mental position from which you have identified, is due to the fear of death. If you identify with a mental position, then if you are wrong, your mind-based sense of self is seriously threatened with annihilation. So you as the ego cannot afford to be wrong. To be wrong is to die. Wars have been fought over this and countless relationships have broken down. Once you have disidentified from your mind, whether you are right or wrong makes no difference to your sense of self at all. So the forcefully compulsive and deeply unconscious need to be right, which is a form of violence, will no longer be there. You can state clearly and firmly how you feel or what you think, but there will be no aggressiveness or defensiveness about it. Your sense of self is then derived from a deeper and truer place within yourself, not from the mind. Watch out for any kind of defensiveness from within yourself. What are you defending? An illusory identity, an image in your mind, a fictitious entity. By making this pattern conscious, by witnessing it, you disidentify from it. In the light of your consciousness, the unconscious pattern will then quickly dissolve. This is the end of all arguments and power games, which are so corrosive to relationships. Power over others is weakness disguised as strength. True power is within, and it is available to you now. So anyone who has identified with their mind and therefore disconnected from their true power, their deeper self rooted in being, will have fear as their constant companion. The number of people who have gone beyond mind is as yet extremely small, so you can assume that virtually everyone you meet or know lives in a state of fear. Only the intensity of it varies. It fluctuates between anxiety and dread at one end of the scale and a vague unease and distant sense of threat at the other. Most people become conscious of it only when it takes on one of its more acute forms. There's 2 points in here that really resonate me, and are things that I have worked on a lot, and I continually work on them. I work on them every day. And one is the psychological fear of what might happen in the future. In other words, like letting anxiety creep in, thinking about things in the future, fretting over things in the future, instead of just, taking care of the present. When we the only thing we can do for the future is to take care of the present. So that's a constant. That's very pertinent for me, because that's something that's day to day. Sometimes I catch myself all the time and I'm like, okay, anxiety, you're thinking about something that could happen a year from now. You're thinking about something that could happen 6 months from now. But you have plenty of power, you have plenty of time to do something about it now. So, don't borrow trouble, don't think to the future. And another one that resonates with me that I've had more success with, or actually I won't say more success with, but I'm further along in my progress, is the need to be right. And I've talked about this in videos before. Why do people double down? Why are they so dug in? Why are they so invested in the need to be right? And they tie up their whole self-worth in it. Like, in other words, if they're wrong, it somehow makes them less of a human being, or less of who they think of as their self. So if we can get beyond this thing called mind, every morning now, I meditate in the mornings now, and I get glimpses. I've mentioned these glimpses before, where, the observer. If we can go beyond the mind, there's a very quiet, there's a very peaceful place. There's a great place to live out there. So anyhow, just exploring a little bit like we do on the weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Peace.